fourth bullet goes through his side. Marcus keeps moving. Not stumbling, not slowing down. Moving low and hard through a blown-out doorway in a village in eastern Syria that does not appear on any map the United States government will ever officially acknowledge. The fifth bullet opens up his left arm just below the shoulder, and he switches his rifle to the other hand without breaking stride. I am across the street, pinned. A PKM machine gun has me and two other guys locked behind a collapsed wall, and the only reason we are still breathing is that the gunner is more interested in Marcus right now, because Marcus, bleeding from 4 entry wounds that would have stopped most men before the second one, has just kicked through a door into a building full of ISIS fighters and disappeared inside. He walks back out, alone, rifle up, moving toward us, blood soaking through his kit from his collar to his boot, his left arm not working right, but his right arm steady, weapon up, scanning, like his body hasn't received the full report yet on what just happened to it. He slides in behind the wall next to me, and looks over and says, "I will never forget this as long as I live." He says, "I need you to call Isabella and tell her I'm going to be late." Isabella, his daughter, 7 years old, waiting at home in San Antonio, Texas, 10,000 kilometers away, in a world that has no idea this village exists. That was round 6. He took 8 more before sunrise. And the whole time, every single time the pain tried to take him somewhere dark, he came back to the same place, Isabella. This is that story.
You need to know who Marcus Reyes was before that village. Marcus grew up in San Antonio, South Side. His mother worked 2 jobs, never complained once that he saw. His father was gone by the time Marcus was 9. Not dead, just gone, which Marcus once told me was somehow worse. He enlisted at 19, not because the recruiter found him, because Marcus walked in, put his name down, looked the recruiter in the eye, and said he wanted the hardest thing they had. They gave him Special Forces selection. He passed it the first time, something less than 30% of candidates do. By 28, he was a staff sergeant in 5th Special Forces Group, the unit responsible for operations across the Middle East. Then Isabella happened. She was born on Thursday in April. Marcus was in Jordan on assignment and made it back in time by 4 hours. He told me he ran through 3 airports and sweet-talked his way into a military transport that had no official reason to take him. He was in the delivery room still wearing his uniform, still had his boots on. The nurse made him take them off. He said it was the only order he'd obeyed that year without questioning it. From that day, everything changed. Before every deployment, Marcus recorded a video on his phone, sitting on the edge of whatever bunk he had, looking into the camera, talking to Isabella like she was right there. Not goodbyes. He refused to make goodbye videos. He called them his promises. He made 6 of these videos across 4 deployments. He never broke a single promise. The 7th video, he never got to record it. Syria found him first. Eastern Syria, October 2017. A village called El Shafa, deep inside what was then the last significant ISIS stronghold in the country. A place where the black flag still flew, and the people who flew it still believed they were going to win. Marcus's team had been inserted 48 hours earlier. 6 men, no air support inside the village perimeter, no armor, no cavalry waiting around the corner, just 6 Americans in the dark, inside a village that ISIS had spent 3 years turning into a fortress. The mission: locate and extract a Syrian intelligence asset, a man who had been feeding coalition forces targeting information for 2 years and whose cover had been blown 12 hours earlier. He was alive, he was hidden, and he had approximately 24 hours before ISIS found him first. What the mission brief did not include was that the intelligence leak that burned the asset had also burned them. Name Marcus knows, a name that has never faced any consequence, had transmitted mission-adjacent communications on a compromised channel. ISIS was waiting. not stumbled upon, not reacting, waiting, positioned, prepared. The moment Marcus's team reached the asset's location, the village closed around them like a fist. Fighters from 3 directions, rooftops, alleyways, ground level, coordinated, professional in the way that men become professional when they have been fighting in the same streets for 3 years. Marcus pushed the asset and 2 team members toward the extraction point, a narrow window, a rooftop, a rope, and a helicopter that was now 12 minutes out instead of 3, because the compromised communications had also delayed the bird. He took the first round at the 4-minute mark. By the 8-minute mark, he had taken 6. By the time the helicopter arrived, 4 minutes late, the longest 4 minutes of every survivor's life, Marcus Reyes had taken 14 rounds, cleared 2 buildings, and kept every single member of his team alive. Not one of them died. Not one. 14 bullets, 6 men home. The math of that man. He spent 9 days unconscious at Landstuhl, then 6 weeks at Walter Reed, then rehabilitation, then more rehabilitation. Isabella visited every weekend her grandmother could drive her. She would walk into his room and she would talk to him about school, about her friends, about the aquarium they were still going to visit. He came home in March 2018, Purple Heart, Silver Star, a ceremony at Fort Bragg with dress uniforms, and a general who shook his hand and said things into a microphone about sacrifice and service and the finest traditions of the American military. 3 weeks later, the Department of Defense quietly opened an investigation into Marcus's team, into their conduct during the ambush. The investigation lasted 11 months. During those 11 months, Marcus was not permitted to re-enlist, not permitted to deploy, not permitted to do the only job he had ever wanted. He was suspended in administrative limbo, still in uniform, still subject to military authority, but frozen, purposeless, a man built for action, dismantled by paperwork. His VA claim for the 14 wounds, submitted correctly, documented completely, supported by records from 3 military medical facilities, was denied in the first review. Denied. He said he sat there for 2 hours. Then Isabella came home from school, dropped her backpack, ran to him, climbed into his lap like he always did, without asking, like it was simply where she belonged. And Marcus Reyes folded the denial letter, put it in a drawer. That was the moment he chose to fight a different kind of war. When he finally submitted the appeal, it was 93 pages long. His veterans advocate, she said, they had no idea who they were fighting. The investigation was closed without findings. Cleared. Every member of the team cleared. The officer responsible for the compromised communications channel received an administrative reprimand. It is not enough. Marcus will tell you himself it is not enough. But it is something in a system designed to produce nothing. The VA claim was approved on a Friday afternoon. Full rating, back pay for the entire period. Marcus was in the backyard with Isabella when the call came. She was teaching him a hand game she'd learned at school, something complicated involving clapping patterns that he could not get right no matter how many times she showed him, and that made her laugh every time he failed. He stepped inside to take the call, came back out 2 minutes later, sat back down across from her, held out his hands. She started the pattern again. He got it wrong again. She laughed again. He let her laugh. He stayed in it. He didn't say anything about the phone call until her grandmother arrived that evening, and then he said it quietly, in the kitchen. He said, "We're okay now, Mama. We're okay." And mostly that is true. The aquarium happened, the fishing trip happened. Isabella is 11 now, and she knows her father's story because Marcus told it to her himself, the real version, when she was old enough to hold it. He said she listened to the whole thing without interrupting. At the end, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Did it hurt?" He said, "Yes." She said, "But you kept thinking about me." He said, every single second. She nodded like that was the correct answer, like she'd already known it and just needed to hear it said out loud. 14 gunshot wounds, 11 months of investigation, denied by the country he bled for. What kept Marcus Reyes vertical was not training. It was not toughness. It was not the finest traditions of the American military. It was a 7-year-old girl who climbed into his lap and put herself exactly where she belonged. ISIS couldn't finish him. The system couldn't break him. And Isabella still can't teach him that hand game. He still gets it wrong every time. This is Scarred Warriors. These are our stories. These are our scars. Staff Sergeant Marcus Reyes, Green Beret, father. The man that 14 gunshots, ISIS, and the United States government bureaucracy all tried to stop. None of them knew about Isabella.